As far as I can tell, the sleep-talking started a couple months ago. I pray it hasn't been any longer than that. For all I know, it could have been going on for weeks to years, without my knowledge. How could I not know? We've slept in the same bed for over a decade, but I never noticed my wife saying anything in her sleep beyond an occasional moan or whimper. See, I'd been having issues with insomnia lately, probably due to drinking more caffeine at work. It's a bad cycle. I'd go into work tired, so I'd drink more caffeine. I wouldn't sleep well. You get the drift. Anyway, I was lying awake at 3 a.m. and staring into the blackness above me when I heard her whisper something so low that it was almost inaudible. It was a name, Brad Johnston. Who in the world is Brad Johnston? I remember wondering. As I mulled it over, I fell asleep. The next day, I asked her about it. Who's Brad Johnston? She looked at me blankly. What? Genuinely flabbergasted. Brad Johnston. You said his name while you were sleeping. She just shrugged. I don't know. Never heard that name before. Sorry about that. Was it an ex-boyfriend? A character on a show she watches? I didn't know, but I figured it could just be coincidence. So I shrugged it off. The next night, she didn't say anything. In fact, for a week, there were no more whisperings that I was aware of. 7 days later, it was once again 3 a.m. I was staring at the ceiling when I heard her whisper, Susanna Decker. The next morning, I asked her about it. Just like the first time, she couldn't tell me where she was getting these names from. After that, the names started coming faster. Kyle Traeger, Kim Tran, Lakeisha Jeffers, and so on. At first, it was one name a night, but soon it was 2, 3, or 4 names. After a couple of weeks, I got the idea to start Googling some of the more unique names. I wish I hadn't. From what I could tell, they were all names of people who had committed suicide. Brad had hanged himself, Susanna had taken pills, and Kyle and Lakeisha were jumpers. Search after search confirmed it. They had died the night she'd uttered their names. I wrestled with whether or not I wanted to share this information with her. I didn't know what good it would do. It's not like she knew what was going on. In the end, though, that's exactly what I did. Of course, she was devastated to hear the news. She said she didn't ever want to sleep again. But she had to, and the names kept coming. And tonight, I heard my own name pass her lips like a gentle breeze. Christopher Abner. I've never made a hangman's noose before, but my hands sure seem to know what they're doing. There is an urban legend in my town called Mr. Tickles. You might be thinking along the lines of the Mr. Men franchise. But this, said to be man, is far worse. My friend Barry thought it would be a good idea to call out this phantom one night. We were pretty drunk around the campfire, but the mood drastically changed when he told everyone what he was going to do. We all shouted for him to stop, knowing the legends that people had turned up dead after the event. We should have knocked him out. The ritual, if we can call it that, is simple. You tickle the person you want to get tickled while calling his name 3 times. On the last tickle, the person has to laugh for the calling to take effect. Sadly for Anna, as she was the most ticklish, Barry had chosen her. The night seemed to still as Anna's shrill laughter rang out. The owls stopped hooting. The tree stopped swaying. We all held our breaths as Barry collapsed in fits of laughter on his seat. The crunch of footfall was like gasoline to our nerves. Leaves cracked and branches began to sway. We all held our breaths. The trees began to part. Most of us ran away. Except me and Anna. I was frozen with fear. She was frozen with something else. Long fingers tiptoed over her shoulders. Then Mr. Tickles rose up behind her. His face was flat, emotionless, betraying his jovial name. His fingers became sharp. Anna screamed as they started to cut through her clothes. Blood peeled like inkwells on her shirt as she cried out in pain. More and more he tickled her, shredding her clothes until they laid in clumpy rags on the floor. Her skin started to peel in the onslaught. Veins and sinew seeped from her chest. Muscles slagged and bulged like defaulted balloons. But still I couldn't move. Blood gargled up from her throat, spilling out her screaming mouth. I found control when I gagged, seeing her guts trickle to the floor. When she sagged to the ground, the emotionless Mr. Tickles flexed his bloody fingers. He walked backward into the forest. The trees curled around him until he vanished out of sight. I found my friends all puffed out at the car park. When I told them what had happened, they didn't believe me. Neither did the police. Now I'm getting charged for murder. Don't ever call Mr. Tickles, or your friends might end up dead. The last story is from a friend of mine, Susan, or Wacky Susan as I call her. And it goes like this. So, I have been with my husband Adam for the last 4 years, and we have been married for the last 2. We both work very busy jobs and live comfortably well within our means. The only downside to our relationship is that he has a very invasive family who love to interfere in our marriage. They tried to take control of our wedding and force us to invite people we didn't want. We had to threaten to uninvite them for them to leave us alone. Ever since we have gotten married, they have been constantly telling us that we need to have children so that our lives will finally be complete. I keep having to tell them that we have no intention of having children, and then they try and make me feel guilty for not continuing on their family name. A couple of weeks ago, I discovered that we were pregnant. Adam was stunned as we were using multiple types of birth control. Unfortunately, my sister-in-law found out about the baby as she found the pregnancy test while snooping in our house. Their entire family started congratulating us and posting on social media before we even had a chance to tell anyone. They even planned a party without consulting us and were arguing over the baby names they wanted. Adam and I started being pressured to organize a gender reveal party. We finally relented to shut them up. I got my sister involved and told her exactly how I wanted the party to go. The party was a complete nightmare as his family wouldn't leave us alone the entire time. They brought us gifts we didn't want and kept making inappropriate suggestions to us about how I should predominantly breastfeed. My sister had a pinata, which we had to hit to reveal the gender. I volunteered to smash it open and could see the eagerness on my mother-in-law's face as she waited to see the results. I took a massive swing, and the pinata cracked open, revealing its contents. I could see the confusion on everyone's faces as they gazed down at what lay on the ground. My mother-in-law fainted after I picked up the fetus and announced it had been a boy.
Please subscribe or the toxic skull will come for you.